meeting of the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order. And we will begin with public comment and comment from those who submitted multiple cards. And so from Mr. Herman, we are going to give you 2 minutes to cover all of the items that you submitted cards for, plus 1 minute of public comment.
So, as you know, on item 2 regarding Bloomfield the Jew, on an ordinance to amend the definition of kennel, well, wasn't it the Jewish religion that put a man on a Christmas tree and killed him? Wasn't that a part of the kennel crucifixion? How do we maintain dogs and cats in kennel? Well, we should neuter and spray them. However, some of us don't follow the definition under the Section 53. And so what happens to the Board of Animal Service and those commissioners, those racists that put poor animals to sleep in the no-kill zone? Daniel Gus is right. Is my mic on?
Yes.
Because Daniel Gus was talking about how the lies and the malicious lies of covering up killing of animals. Right, Mr. Price? Thank you for coming in a little late, but you're here. And then we go into item 3. Animal Service Commissioners, City Attorney, Information Technology Agency to manage animal shelters, animal inventories. Well, they haven't been doing a good job with that. So you get a grade F. Fuck up, failed. And then we go to item 4. Another Jew by the name of Englander who plans to ask city departments highlight areas of concerns critical to be vacated management positions. Well, you know what? If you would hire the right people who are outside of the city, they can manage your problems. They can manage dog kennels for dogs and cats because they're the experts. That's why they come in here and contest you on why animals have to suffer and die.
Now you have a minute under public comment.
And then in regards to my public comment, Princess Little Nuri Martinez in CD6 has allowed the police commission under Richard T. Frank to allow the spearmint rhino under the DBA in Van Nuys, California, to experiment with lap dancing. And you know what you get for a buffet at the Inland Restaurant? You don't get just a special buffet. You actually
Does
get.
Does this have anything to do with the subject matter?
That because you kill animals and you make a nice, beautiful bench for people to have a lap dance on, and these poor animals are not a part of the lap dance.
I don't think so.
I do think so. When you use animal skins to represent the spearmint rhino, that's not a part of the animal services that we're supposed to protect. You're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong, Koretz. Stop being a pig.
Of our issues. Next speaker under public comment will be Phyllis Doherty.
Good afternoon. I want to remind you that our Animal Services Department still does not have any new trucks. The trucks that they are driving were from 2001, 2003. About 3 to 4 years ago, you held a meeting because you were so concerned about the heat of the animals, not about the danger to the employees. Well, a dog died just a few months ago in the back of one of these trucks that 3 to 4 years ago, you and the PAW committee promised would be replaced. And there's been no follow-up on it. So I hope that we're going to see a serious follow-up on that, because now the employees can barely drive these trucks. And if they kill someone out there in trucks in that condition, that burden is going to be on them and their health, their safety if they live, and it'll be on the taxpayers for what it's going to cost for the negligence. So I hope that that's something that you will look into and follow up on right away. Can I
Just for the
continue?
record, we have been following up and pushing this issue ever since it first came up, and we are expecting the first vehicle, if it hasn't already arrived, to arrive soon.
After 3 years, you could have ordered a fleet in 6 months, the entire fleet.
Hey, if I was in charge of this, it would have happened a lot more
Thank you.
quickly, but it was done by General Services, and we had a lot of issues that came up that
Yeah,
stood in the way.
it was designed by someone that
Anyway,
isn't a
your
designer,
time is
I
up, but
understand.
thank you, and we are
But
on
you
this
didn't.
issue.
That was just 1 minute.
That was just for public comment.
All right. You want me to come back on
Yeah.
the other item? All right.
Yes. So I will ask and note that Mr. Price is here, and we now have a quorum. So I will suggest that we put item number 5 and 6 on consent, plus item number 1 with a friendly amendment to add the Emergency Management Department as a responding department, and item number 3, consent, with an amendment to add an instruction to direct Animal Services to identify potential funding sources for any software upgrades or replacements recommended through this RFI process. Okay, so if there are no objections, those items are approved on consent. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a motion, Koretz Bloomingfield, relative to initiate an ordinance to amend the definition of kennel in the Los Angeles Planning and Zoning Code to specify its application only to kennels maintained for business purposes, with the exception of pet shops.
And so do we have a representative to walk us through this briefly? Or to answer any questions? Which department should be represented? Do we have an Animal Services representative that can speak to this?
I'm definitely present, but I need help from our assistant city attorney.
And I'd particularly like to ask the city attorney for preliminary comments on the proposed draft and to clarify the city's regulatory authority in this matter.
So I received a copy of this motion late this morning. I've taken a look at it. We're going to have to analyze the effects it would have. As far as the regulatory framework, obviously it can be done. This is a motion by your committee to ask City Council to amend the zoning code, which is an appropriate motion. What the effects will be, obviously that I can't really opine. But on its face, the request is perfectly legitimate.
Okay, I'd suggest when the draft ordinance is prepared that this also be referred to Plum Committee as well, just to make sure that we have all of our
Right, since this is
I's
the
dotted
zoning
and
code.
T's crossed, since it is part of the zoning code.
Right. As a matter of fact, this will probably be drafted by the attorneys in our planning and zoning unit rather than by me.
Very good. Mr. Price, any comments or questions? We have a couple comments from Phyllis Doherty, to be followed by Diana Mendoza.
Thank you, Phyllis Doherty for Animal Issues Movement. I'm going to speak directly to the motion. First of all, there is no misinterpretation. We have existed with this ordinance as it is. There is often redundancy in the law. If you don't have redundancy in the law, you don't have any cohesiveness in authority and how it's implemented in any way throughout the entire city. So there's often redundancy that certain aspects of it are controlled by one department and by another, and that's exactly what this is. Because you cannot give the Animal Services Department authority to enforce environmental laws of this type. This is something that's done by building and safety. if you look at the authority of animal services and animal control officers in the code, it's very limited. They're peace officers. That's it. They can't go out and examine buildings for sound and do things like that. The other thing is that this third paragraph about LA County is completely fallacious. They absolutely, and I put it in the letter to you, they absolutely use kennels. They call them animal facility licenses, and they've determined the number of animals in all of their 47 contract cities.
Thank you. And I know the city attorney will look at those issues among others as he drafts the ordinance.
Hi, good
Welcome.
afternoon. I'm Diana Mendoza from PETA, and we sent over a letter voicing our concerns about this morning, but I also brought copies in case you haven't received that yet. We do want to thank you guys for all the changes and clarifications you've made to this motion. However, we are concerned about the second half of the motion regarding the household dog and cat limits. It is vital that that be put into place concurrently or prior to any changes to the kennel definition being changed or amended. Should the kennel definition changes go through without those household limits in place, there would be there would temporarily be no regulation on the number of animals, which would obviously open the door to widespread hoarding, abuse, neglect, and all those things. So for the safety of the residents of Los Angeles and the animals, we urge you to require the household limits be implemented prior to or in conjunction with any amendments to the kennel definitions.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments? There being none, I would move to request the city attorney draft these ordinances. And that will pass without objection. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is a motion, Koretz Englander and the Personnel Department report regarding succession plans and recommendations to ensure development of a pool of qualified candidates for key positions and facilitate knowledge transfer from experienced employees.
Good afternoon, council members. Vince Cordell, the Personnel Department. I'm pleased to provide a brief overview of our efforts related to Mayor Garcetti's Executive Directive number 15, issued in April 2016, which directed all departments to complete and submit an equitable workforce and service restoration plan by September 30, 2016. So according to ED 15, the plans were to address frontline services, succession planning, technology needs, and address gaps in services delivery and be updated annually. In 2016, the Personnel Department assisted all city departments with the development of their plans. As part of these efforts, the general managers of the Personnel Department and Information Technology Agency met with the majority of GMs or heads of departments in 2016. The 38 department plans that were submitted in 2016 can be found online by visiting our workforce planning website. Within these plans, each department was tasked with reporting the number and percentage of their employees eligible to retire by June 30, 2018, identifying existing and anticipated service gaps, and reporting their critical areas and classes, challenges, and priority objectives for the department. An analysis of the 2016 plans indicate the central theme reported by departments in their plans was a need for capable staff. The top 3 principal concerns the majority of departments reported are the following. Roughly 70% of the departments specified a need for meaningful staff development, more training and development opportunities, as well as funds to invest in their workforce. More than 50% of the departments reported a need to increase current staffing levels by filling vacancies and or obtaining new positions to restore their workforce, programs, and services to pre-recession standards. And roughly 50% of departments expressed the need for innovative recruitment, hiring strategies, and support solutions for temporary gaps in critical positions. An analysis of Lacer's retirement data for fiscal year 16-17, and this is as of June 30, 2017, found a total of 8,294 of the 25,284 employees were eligible for either early or regular retirement, which is 33% of the total. However, only 798 employees actually retired between July 1st, 2016 and June 30th, 2017, which represents only 3% of the city's workforce. An analysis of the last 4 years revealed that between 7 and 10% of those eligible retired, which represented between 2 to 3% of the total workforce. In 2017, the Personnel Department assisted all city departments with updating their plans for fiscal year 17-18. This time around, the Office of the Mayor selected 7 departments for a deeper analysis. These departments include Cultural Affairs, General Services, ITA, Library Department, City Planning, Public Works Bureau Sanitation, and Rec and Parks. These departments were expected to provide division-level analysis for their workforce and technology needs and uses as part of their plans. As part of our efforts, personnel staff worked with the Office of the Mayor to develop a summary of plan updates form and plan checklist to assist departments with summarizing updates to their plans and aligning those updates with Mayor Garcetti's priorities. Personnel Department's GM issued a memo on September 15, 2017 to all GMs to provide them resources to assist them in updating their plans, including a list of personnel staff serving as succession plan liaisons. Additionally, she met with 7 of the mayor's select departments, GMs. Personnel staff also conducted informational workshops to answer departments' questions related to the updates of the plans. And the plans were due on this past Friday, January 12, 2018. And we are currently in the process of following up with the departments that have yet to submit the plan. So we're waiting on plans from 12 departments as of this moment. We will be providing a report back to PAW in late March 2018 to report findings, recommendations, and analysis of these updated plans that were due January 12, 2018. Thank you very much, and we'll now take some questions.
Sure. Do you have a sense of which job classifications and which departments are the most at risk as a result of the study you've done so far?
So what we've seen is generally there's a lot of single positions where there's only one person where there's 100%, and in the report that we attached there, we did identify classifications that have a 75% or higher retirement eligibility rate. What we want to come back with in March is a more specified breakdown, because what we heard from the departments in our meetings with those 7 deep dives is that there's a need to ensure that the mid-level to upper management gain knowledge, or the knowledge is transferred from those retiring. So we want to try to specify which managerial classifications are at risk and follow up with that. So we would like to come back with that information in March.
And clearly, even if it's one position that's at risk, we obviously want to move fast to provide as much training as possible from the key positions, particularly in IT, where we have some ancient software programming. I think we either want to replace it or make sure that the one person that knows how to operate some decades-old software has passed that information on to someone else. Do we have a sense of how important this will be to the functioning of the city in the next 5 or 10 years, the efforts that we're looking at undertaking now?
It's, as you can see, there's a great need for training, a great need to transfer this knowledge, and ensuring that there's eligible list for the classifications that are identified. So I believe it's very important personally to ensure that we have training as well as eligible lists established to ensure that we could backfill these positions as they come up. In addition to part of the plans, they're looking at target local hire as well, and entry-level positions that they could potentially fill as individuals promote into higher level positions.
So how do we feel about our current eligibility lists in terms of matching the areas in high retirement danger?
And actually, that's a good point, Councilmember. We want to come back with that information once we identify the classifications, match it up to see if there's existing lists. And we have that information available. It just hasn't been done, the analysis yet. But I think that's a good point there. We should look at that.
And I assume once we've done that, once we find the most at-risk departments and classes, we'll focus a greater effort at making sure eligibility and training and all those things are done.
Yeah, we'll
quickly.
definitely work with the divisions within the personnel department.
Any other common themes that you found so far in the work that you've done?
Yeah, we actually identified some other common themes on the back of the report here that we submitted. There was also training and employment classification issues, so the need for new classifications or different classifications, a need for IT issues where there's technology issues, again, as you mentioned, maybe a need to transition to newer software or new technology in order to boost the efficiency of that particular function. So we outlined the common themes on the back of the report here, and there's several based across all of the reports. They're all written in by different people. So what we did is we had a checklist and just kind of marked down to see what type of common themes we saw across all the plans that were submitted by the 38 departments last year around. We're going to do a similar thing this
Right, and I know it was in the report. I just want to ask you publicly so people are aware of what those themes are.
So yeah, those themes: supervisor training, staff development, need for leadership training, desk manuals, again, new positions request, transition. There's a need for transitioning part-time to full-time. And also, some departments want to increase the use of exempt temporary as needed positions, keeping certain exams continuous. Those were some of the common themes we saw across the board.
Mr. Price?
Thanks for the efforts. We're going to look forward to the results of the final report, obviously. But given the themes, especially around the training, staff development, et cetera, did you find any departments doing anything on their own? Any creative, informal processes that are in place that departments are utilizing until a more formal, more coordinated, organized effort is mounted?
A good point. On that summary plan of updates I mentioned, which is attachment 1 of the updates, we actually asked them to identify any training that they're currently performing on their own to address the gaps in skills or training that may be needed. And what we found, actually, even going out to the 7 departments, a lot of the departments are doing their own leadership academies. They're all doing their own sort of training in the meantime to address these concerns. So they are looking at ways to ensure that their staff is trained and ready, or developing their own desk manuals to transfer that knowledge to another individual.
And when do you hope to have your final report back to us?
And hopefully at the end of March. So we're still waiting on 12 plans at this moment, so we're following up to get those in. Once we get those in, we're going to...
Those are plans from 12 departments?
Yeah.
What's the 12 plans? Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of it, what we've been finding is that it may have been sent somewhere else, or someone's out of the office. They've been coming in. And we're going to be updating the mayor's office next week, which departments we haven't received those plans for at that point.
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, we should also just kind of keep a running track on who's responding, who's not responding. That frequently is a problem. Departments not following up and following through for us. But
we'll expect every department to have responded by end of March of this year. If you're running into trouble, let us know, and we'll try to give them a poke also.
We'll let you know.
So having said that, I'd move that we note and file the Personnel Department's report and instruct you to come back as you've offered in late March, hopefully with all departments' results.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you very much.
So that item passes without objection. Item number 7. Oh, wait a second. Actually, we have a request from a couple folks that were here to speak as representatives of the LA Equine Advisory Committee on item number 1. And so I'd ask that we reopen item number 1 for some public comment. And you'll have 1 minute each.
Larry Watts, CD 11 representative on the LAEC. We welcome this motion. It's really good. We would recommend also that the fire department and the emergency service department, animal services, coordinate with our committee. We are having already assigned, the fire department has assigned Chief Tomlinson to assist us in developing recommendations, and that's what we would like to do, is work cooperatively with the fire department and with animal services and emergency services. At the next meeting of the advisory committee on Monday, coming Monday, we'll have representatives from both LA Fire Department and the county fire department, because this is a problem that is multi-jurisdictional in the case of a real emergency. So thank you for doing this, and we just ask that we be involved.
Thank you. And
Hi.
Ms. Brown, do you have anything to add?
You remember my name. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I am the vice president of the LA Equine Advisory Committee. I just support what Larry is saying. I want to say quickly, there's probably close to 60,000 horses in LA County and LA City, and it's really important that we begin to develop communications with animal welfare so that we can do what just happened with this huge burning and ranches being burned and horses being destroyed, and not having ways of communicating and getting everybody out. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank
and
you.
for hearing us out.
And that was a terrible tragedy. I think we have learned a lot from it, but I think we can learn more and plan for more. So
Major drill, but it was worse than that. It was a
clearly,
learning experience.
Yes, our president had his entire ranch burned down.
yes. Well, there were many. So we will encourage, as part of this motion, that the LA Equine Advisory Committee be included in some of these conversations. And now, and I don't know if we need to pass that motion again because we reopened it, or if our previous action stands. City Attorney? Or
Were you adding anything further?
Only the instruction that we asked to include the LA Equine Advisory Committee in discussions.
Okay, then you should revote.
All right, so we will pass that again without objection. That was item number 1. Item number 7.
Item 7 is a Personnel Department report relative to employee development in 2016-17.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Michael Gold with the Personnel Department. The Administrative Code requires that the Personnel Department maintain a comprehensive training program for all city employees. And it requires that we report to Council annually on the progress of training in all city departments except for the proprietaries. This report covers fiscal year 2016-17. During that time, we launched the Cornerstone online training system. And during that reporting period, over 30,000 training courses were completed, and about 20,000 of those were not mandatory courses. 10,000 were mandatory.
These are online?
This is just online. We're just talking about online here. And during this time, we also maintain the employee recognition program that allows supervisors to formally recognize the good work of employees, to print certificates and distribute them. 195 employees from 18 city departments were recognized during this time. We developed a mentorship program as well within the personnel department. We piloted this program and matched 24 mentees with mentors, and we would like to roll that out citywide. We provided classroom training as well with our core supervisory training program. Those are 7 half-day sessions on all variety of supervisory topics. 288 employees completed the training during this reporting period. There was more classroom training provided by the Employee Assistance Program. 16 city departments received training for 1,014 employees. And then we also, in this report, provided information about the training that other city departments are providing to their employees. 31 departments provided a total of 2,045 training courses. The largest audience, or the students who took those courses, were professionals and administrative support. And the most common topics were job-specific topics and policy awareness. We maintained an MOU training program with MOUs 3, 36, 37, and 63, providing training to its members. And we looked at mandatory training during this time. 36 city departments provided 241 training sessions, and all but one city department had at least 90% compliance with the required training. And finally, we looked at tuition reimbursement citywide, and 801 employees from 8 city departments benefited from tuition reimbursement. Library and Public Works Engineering funded the most people. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Could you give us an update on the participation in the Managed Health Network training opportunities and the city's wellness program.
Yeah, so I have the data for 2016-17 for the training that city departments took, and that's classroom training on a variety of different topics, and they provided training to 16 city departments where there were 1,014 employees being trained. Do you have additional information?
35 different topics were covered. The most requested topic was effective workplace communication for managers.
And that include online or just in person?
So the Employee Assistance Program provides the in-person training.
Okay. And in light of all the high-profile incidents in media and government and other places relating to sexual harassment, have we developed new programming in that regard, and anything that we haven't rolled out yet that we plan to in the future?
So during this reporting period, we offered the sexual harassment training course, and there were a number of employees and supervisors who took it. And since then, it's required every 2 years of our supervisors. So at the end of 2017, it was the cycle or the time for our supervisors to take the course. And so far, at last count, 16,000 of our supervisors took the training. As far as new programs and new training, there is a committee looking at different options in light of all of the news on this topic recently, and that's still in progress. So there's nothing been determined at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Price, any additional? So we will note and file this report, and thank you for the update. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is a Personnel Department report relative to the Civilian LA Well Employee Benefits Trust Fund.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Stephen Montana. I'm the Chief of the Benefits Division within the Personnel Department. With me is Charles Hong from the City Attorney's Office to walk you through the recommendations that we have in this report. And this is with regard to the Employee Benefits Trust Fund. So this is a trust fund that was established in the 1990s as a mechanism to be able to process the revenues that would flow from the general fund and from employee contributions to the various insurance plans that are offered. So when this trust fund was set up, it really replaced the way that payments had been made previously, which were direct transfers from the general fund to the carriers. So periodically, with certain types of insurance contracts, that trust fund may receive refunds or reimbursements of premium payments, and certain of those may come to the city as the entity that's offering the program, and then certain of those would actually go back to the members. In the process of looking at processing some refunds to our members, it was brought to our attention by the City Attorney's Office that actually it would be valuable to clarify within the administrative code that basically the intent of this fund is to operate as an agency fund, and that would allow us to be able to issue interest as well as the refund payment. So right now, if it was if we were to treat that as a Internal Revenue Code 501c39 fund, that under those provisions of the Internal Revenue Code, you're not able to issue interest. So this would give us the ability to give our members interest. So we took this to the Joint Labor Management Benefits Committee. This is something that they're very interested in. We sort of regard this as a technical correction and bringing the operation of the fund in line with what we believe the intent of it was.
So the main purpose of the change in language is to allow interest to be paid.
Right, and then this also to clarify going forward that this is an agency fund of the city.
So is there a difference between a voluntary employee benefits association or a VIBA and an agency fund?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Charles, would you like to?
Sure. Charles Hong, City Attorney. A voluntary employee benefits trust fund is a fund created under 501c9 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. It's a separate legal entity and functions separate and apart from an agency fund. In order to qualify for a 501c9 entity status, the entity itself would have to submit basically approval from the Internal Revenue Service to be recognized as a 501c9 fund. So that's the main distinction. There is an administrative and procedural process requiring with the Internal Revenue Service to be recognized as a 501c9. There is no such requirement as an agency fund.
So we're not doing that. We're just creating an agency.
Yeah, we're just clarifying the aspects of the agency fund.
So why not create a VIBA instead?
To do so would require certain procedural and filing requirements with the Internal Revenue Service, and to do so, the existence of the recognition of the VIBA actually would be contemporaneous with the filing. And so, as a VIBA, there are certain constraints that are imposed under the Internal Revenue Code and its related Treasury regulations. And one restriction is that the earnings of the VIBA can't inure to the benefit of its memberships. And so here, there's an issue of whether the interest component that's being recommended to be distributed to the members is considered earnings for income tax purposes.
So the agency fund would be a better
Right.
way
The
for us
agency
to
fund
do it
does
regardless.
not have the constraints of a 501c9 entity because it operates within the confines of the city's pre-existing tax-exempt status.
So could we be in violation or the city be liable for past IRS violations for the way we're operating currently?
Technically, the city has never created a VIBA. Sorry, the acronym being for a Voluntary Employee Benefits Association. And so the city has always been operating under its trust fund as an agency trust fund.
So
at the moment,
no past actions by
as far as
JLMBC or personnel that would be a problem.
in terms of from a regulatory standpoint, the IRS has no transparency or recognition of a 501c9 VIBA within the city, as far as we know, based on our, diligence in reviewing the files of the city.
And the admin code requires the chair of the Joint Labor Management Benefits Committee to report annually to the city council and the mayor on expenditures out of the fund. And the last report that we can find from the JLMBC on this is from 2010, 2011. So do we know what the status is of getting an annual report from JLMBC on this issue regarding employee benefits, trust fund expenditures, and receipts for the past year?
Yeah, so to clean that up, what we're proposing to do is to make that part of the annual adoption report, which is submitted to council every year for the adoption of the program for the subsequent calendar year.
So, and we would expect that when?
That typically happens over the summer, so it would be right around July 1, which is when the whatever elements of the program are going to be adopted and put into place for the subsequent calendar year need to be finalized by then, so we can set up the process for open enrollment, which is in October.
Mr. Price, any questions?
Yeah, just curious about the interest. So the interest will just go back into the pool and it's used for what, administrative purposes, or it's divided up so that everyone gets 2 cents, or how does that? What's going to happen to this interest? And how much are we talking about roughly?
Right. Well, in this case, of course, the amount of interest would vary based on what amounts were refunded and which employees paid how much. But we're talking about refunds to the membership based on their premium contributions. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the premium payments are made by the city. But to the extent that members have purchased individual coverage and some of that money may be owed back to them, then all we're saying is that in processing the refund that we'd also give them interest on that amount.
Fair enough. So I would ask that we approve the Personnel Department's recommendation to request a draft ordinance from the city attorney as detailed in their report and directions recommended by the committee. And so that item will be approved without objection. Thank you very much. Item number 9.
Item 9 is the Department of Animal Services report recommending changes to the language in the Animal Welfare Trust Fund.
So this item has been heard by our Board of Animal Services Commissioners and has been approved. So we are trying to move it forward through this committee and then hopefully onto City Council. Some of the money that comes into the trust fund comes in as restricted funds. It's for specific projects or specific needs. And those, of course, are not funds that would be impacted at all by this. We're talking about the unrestricted donations that come in that don't have any donor preferences listed on them.
So the problem with the current language is that new programs aren't included, correct?
Correct, and it's just more restrictive. There's actually only on the board report that I think you probably have a copy of. There are only a couple of sentence changes in item B. The city attorney added to establish new programs in addition, and under item C, for the full or partial payment of animal shelter adoptions, microchips, and or redemption fees in connection with specific adoption events or for programs for low-income persons. Those are the only two additions.
Okay. And so, as an example, the CAT program currently has some elements that the department already carries out, but as a new program that adds some, this would be ineligible for funding.
You know, we've had some kind of CAT programs going on for a while, so I think there's a definition involved about which specific CAT programs and whether or not it can be used for the current, if any additional monies are needed for the current EIR. If we need some additional monies, we would prefer to go to the Animal Welfare Trust Fund rather than to go back through the budget process and tap the general fund.
Okay. Mr. Price, any questions? We have one speaker from the public, Phyllis Doherty.
Thank you. The Phyllis Doherty with the Animal Issues Movement. The Animal Welfare Trust Fund is set up for only specific uses for the enhancement of the shelters, and the money that's in there should not be used for getting free cats and so forth. The money that's already in there. People have donated it for that purpose. They need to be aware of where their money's going when they provide it. Many people, myself included, I don't donate to the county anymore because they go into free programs. I want my animal donations to shelters to be there to provide existing benefits and additional benefits of the same thing for the animals that are in the shelter. So if you're going to change the use of this, none of the funds that are in there should be used for any of these new purposes, and people need to be made extremely aware of what it's going to be used for. We've almost spent all of our spay-neuter funds, from what I understand. We don't want this one to go broke also.
Thank you. So the city attorney is recommending a minor change that would allow expenditures on new programs as well. That seems reasonable, but I would suggest that we amend the instructions of the report to say that the city council has to approve any new programs before they're eligible for trust fund monies.
And this would also, Assistant City Attorney Dov Lascelles, and this would all be prospective. So this would be, once the ordinance passes and the changes made to the code, that money would be subject to these changes.
Correct. So I would recommend that we move this item forward with the recommendations by the city attorney and the additional amendment that the city council needs to approve any new programs before they're eligible for trust fund monies. So with those amendments, that item moves. Oh, actually, one moment before I get that far. Let's see. No, I think all our. Ms. Doherty, you already spoke, right? On this item, yes. Okay, so this item passes without objection, and having no business further before us, we are adjourned.